Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Attached, a different lens, where Donna and I talk. We kind of ask each other questions in order to see what arises, how our perspectives converge and diverge, and also, I suppose, what's underneath how we answer the questions. That's kind of where the juice is. So I have a question, or more like a cue, for Donna today, and it is, tell me a funny story, which could be related to parenting, teaching, life in general, and then what arose or what you learned from that funny scenario.
So this is going to be so out there today because I get the question a day before, and at the moment I'm fighting sickness. I know I'm a little bit more dorsal vagal at the moment, and I think this is really really interesting because when I thought about the question, I was like, oh, I'm stumped. I'm stumped. This is really interesting, but I also know from my own journey that when we look at emotions, and people think we've got positive and negative emotions, but actually all emotions are equally valid. And for me, I've always struggled with joy. I haven't been co-regulated through joy in my younger years. And so I'm like, this is really interesting because a really simple question that I should go, well, let's go and have some fun with it. I'm like, whoa, I feel like I've just hit a brick wall. I sat with your question yesterday and I'm like, okay, Donna, you've got lots of beautiful memories, you've got lots of funny things, but you're a little bit sick at the moment, you're a little bit slow. Um, and you'll know that you're just accepting that you're in dorsal vagal. But also what I know is when I'm in dorsal vagal, the world that I see comes from that more shut down lens. And so I'm like going, okay, all right, so you're struggling with this question, but this is actually the answer to your question. And I think we've talked about I've got a wall with which I put on my hall with all the really happy memories that I have with my children, all the funny
Mm.
memories, all the happy memories to remind me because I have had a journey that's probably been more. I think from that sorrow perspective, that's been where my normal has been, and it's not poor me. It's just more. This was the temperature that I grew up within, and so I was like, oh yeah, it's okay, Donna. It's all right. You're just today. This is just how, and I still feeling it. This is actually just how you're seeing the world at the moment. And I'm like, this is actually, this is really well timed because normally I could go a whole load of things of memories, but I'm struggling. And then it brought me back to when I left an early childhood centre. And a parent literally, when she described me in her card, she's like, I can hear your laugh all the way down the corridor. It's one of my favourite things is to hear that you're always laughing. And I read this card and I'm like, this is so interesting because this person can hear that I'm a funny, happy person, but I don't feel it. This is really, really interesting. And I think this to me is just part of the journey that I do from the wounds and the needs work. And also the celebrating just some days I'm a little bit flatter than others. And it doesn't mean that once I shift whatever's in my body that I'll come back more into. So ventral vagal is more where our regulated state is, but at the moment I'm in just more of that shutdown state, and that's actually okay. In this moment, my body is saying I need rest, I need quiet, but it's also what I'm seeing or remembering is not the truth.
Mm.
And just knowing that my journey has been different to others and it's actually okay to be different to someone else. So I know that wasn't the I know that wasn't the question, but that's, I suppose, how I wanted to answer it today. I wanted to answer it with truth
Hmm.
because I wanted, if there's a mum here, I wanted them to hear that it doesn't always look rosy. You don't have to, it's actually okay. I know that in a couple of days I will have worked my way out of this. But at the moment, actually, what my body is asking for is that, and I find every time I travel, so I've just been to Christchurch, every time I travel, I come back and I have this cocoon kind of phase where I am more dorsal vagal and I just need to
Mm.
be quiet for a couple of days. And it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Yes. And it's the perfect response because, it's your response. And the question is, or the cue is just an opening, and that's what we're finding each time, isn't it? It's like, there's a question, but you can go anywhere. Um,
And I think I
and it's
wanted to
interesting.
answer it with authenticity. I could have
Yeah.
gone, or I could have gone, actually, this is the real truth of where I am in this moment today. And that doesn't mean that I'm going to stay here. It just means this is where, and I'm very comfortable now because I know that where we are moves. So, and I have the tools to move it at the moment. I don't have the energy to move. And so I'm just going, my body is telling me quiet, and that's okay.
Mm. Yeah. I love it. All
So
right.
back the other way.
Yeah. Cool. So I have a story about when my boys were quite little, not really babies anymore. So like a little boy and a older toddler. Maybe he was 4 or something like this, my younger guy. And just as a bit of context, my guys were runners, so I had to, when I went out with them, I had to be like, okay, he's there. And so quite often I'd be like, actually, you know what, I can't be bothered going out, I'd pick quite strategically how often I went out, where I went, gauge the mood, gauge the energy levels, think about whether it was worth all the steps with the getting dressed and the getting out of the house because there was all these kind of sensory things going on. But this one day, my older boy, he really wanted to paint. And he was really kind of fixated on this idea of wanting to get some paints because we'd run out and do a painting. And my initial response was like, "Oh, I don't think we can paint today because we've no paint." Like just. And then he was really set on it. And after a while, I was kind of like, "Oh, maybe we could go. It shouldn't be that big a deal, surely, just to pop down to warehouse stationery and get in, get the paints, get out. It's only a small request. I can do this." But actually, part of me was like, I don't want to do it. But anyway, we went. Okay. We got there. The boys were a little bit wild. They were kind of wanting to play on, the swivelly office chairs and they were loud, but they weren't upset. They weren't really bothering anyone because it's a large store, right? And so I found the paint, managed to herd everyone to the checkout, and I was on the home straight. I was like, okay, it's good. It's good. We're almost out. And then when my stuff was on the counter, little guy makes a sudden dash for the exit. And so, of course, I'm like, oh, my stuff's there, but obviously I have to chase him because he's running out into a car park area. And so I just kind of secure my older boy. I'm like, okay, just wait. And I run. And as he's running towards the door, he stops at the carousel with all the little gift card vouchers on it. And he just like grabs like 50 of them. And then he continues running for the exit. And so I'm like, oh no, am I going to have to tackle him on the concrete? It's not going to be good. But anyway, I didn't have to make that decision because he tripped and he fell, and these all these gift vouchers just went all the way across the concrete. And there was one of those, long gutters for drainage that you find in car parks with the slots. And I was like, oh, they're all gonna go, they're all gonna go down there. But actually they didn't. They were just splayed everywhere across the concrete. And so my little boy was crying because he grazed his leg on his dash for freedom. And so I just sat with him and I waited for him to regulate, which took a while. And then I gathered up all of the vouchers and I made my way back in because my stuff was still on the checkout. And what was amazing about it was when I was kind of sitting on the concrete with the sea of chaos around me, what came to me rather than like, oh my gosh, this is terrible, what will people think? It was very funny. Even in the moment, like I was relieved because everyone was safe, but I did laugh because I was like, this is just the absurdity of, this very simple outing and how kind of awry it went. Um, it's very funny. And then I got back in and it's a young guy at the checkout and he was so gracious and he didn't make a comment or roll his eyes. He was just like, oh yeah, okay, it's still here now. We can process it. And so there were lots of gifts in this scenario. And one of them was that actually, you know, I could have listened to the part of me that was like, actually, although this seems like a simple proposition, it's not going to go well today. Like part of me knew it, and I just kind of I overrode it a bit. There was a little bit of like external pressure on myself, like, why can't you just do this simple task for your older boy? Um, this was a time in our lives where leaving the house was really difficult, and I was like, we can do this one thing, we can do it, and like it wasn't optimal, but the other kind of gifts in it were to notice. How much I'd learned and was able to regulate that even in this really chaotic moment, it was okay. Like my priority was making sure everyone was all right, bringing it back down. Didn't matter that I was sitting in the gutter and everyone was just walking around me. And it was great. And also just noticing how amazing it is when people are gracious and that does happen because it can be easy to focus on the times where people are not helpful, they're judgmental, all of those things. But actually, there was a lot of grace in the situation. That's what I
Mhm.
keep coming
And
back to.
with those moments now, because just as you're talking, I can hear those moments for me, and I'll always walk past a parent going, you've got this," and yeah, I've been there, and again, it's really interesting because there's a camaraderie in parents, or I've noticed, and I like I feel like I want to be one of those parents that just go, "You've got this,"
Mm,
because I know that for the one of me, there might be nine others that are glaring at the parent because of not understanding what's happening. But just having that one is enough for that parent to go, "Yeah, I've got
mm,
this." So
mm,
again, and I hear, like I say, I hear just the beauty of you already made that self-reg calculation that this was probably going to push you a little bit out of your window of tolerance, and I think that's also gave the humor of it as well, because you already was like, yeah, I'm pushing it, and then you're like, yeah, I totally pushed it. and
Whoops. Yeah.
and I
Yeah.
think it's more, I don't hear someone that was pushing themselves for the sake of pushing them. I saw someone going, okay, we're really at the edge of the window and this could go two ways. So someone that understood their nervous system and understood their children's nervous system and made a calculated risk. but with that calculated risk, also help with the humor because it's just like, ah, not today.
This is the way it went today. Yeah.
But another day it could have been fine. And
Yeah,
and I think that's the whole thing as well. It's more, there's not only your nervous system, but your children's, the shoppers, the attendants in the shop that all make, so again, we all interplay together, and
exactly.
it's more with, again, it's funny because also you had the graciousness of the person behind the sales desk. What would it have looked like if it had? And again, it's more, we all have a part of being together in humanity. And it's more, I think, because of my own journey, because I used to be what my so I used to be again, when I was trained to be a nurse, one of the nurses I worked with going, "Don't you ever be a 2F professional?" And I'm like, "What's a 2F professional?" And she's like, "Work it out for yourself." And I'm like, and then when I did one, I'd be one of those. And when I became a parent, I realized that I probably was in the past because I didn't quite understand the challenges and the differences between being a professional and being a parent. And
Mm,
I took that into my teaching career, and I taught my teachers that it's way easy to be a teacher than what it is to be a
yes,
parent.
it's totally different. And I know, yeah, a lot of people who've said the same thing. Either they were a carer, a nurse, a teacher, a nanny, even, and you're looking after very young children. Absolutely didn't prepare them for
No,
for parenting their own children because of the stuff that comes up.
and you don't get to switch off. And there's another level of an emotional connection that you never expected that you don't get as being a professional. So, and I think you only get that afterwards. And it's really interesting. It's really, really interesting. I went to a cafe when I was down in Christchurch, and this is literally going off again, but it was a crisis cafe for people with mental health difficulties, and they are run by peer supporters, the people that have actually been through the system themselves. And we had such an amazing chat about actually having working with people that maybe don't have all the bells and whistles, but have had the lived experience is sometimes actually what people need. And that's what I do in my work is I've lived this, you've lived it, Kirsty. And I think that understanding it, there's something that is in your nervous system, which allows you to attune at a way, way deeper level than if you haven't gone through the situation yourself.
Yeah, it's very true. Of course, you can never have exactly the same
No,
experience as someone else, but you can definitely feel it when someone just has no real idea
yeah. But
of
yeah,
what you've been navigating. Yeah.
I watched your face when I started my story, and I could feel the attunement that you knew what I was talking about as I started my story today.
Mm.
And I could see that just in your mannerisms. It wasn't fake. And it allowed me to carry on talking because I was like, this is so left of field today. I want to talk about, but it's more, you get it. You can't make up someone in their eyes, in their body language, understanding something similar. Might not be the same, but something similar. And I love
Mm.
how these questions just take. Can I go on now? I've heard your funny one. Can I go on to a funny one that's popped into my head?
Yeah, now that it's arising.
But again, and I think this is the beautiful thing as well because it's that connection. So when I teach the nervous system, I talk about two things: protection or connection. And it's really interesting because I've laughed with you. I can feel myself moving into connection, and then suddenly all these funny stories are popping into my head, and I'm like, this is so interesting, and this is why it's so important to be together because when we're in protection, we sort of shut ourselves off and we withdraw away. But anyhow, I was thinking about boundaries and toddlers. And it's more so when I used to work in teams, it's really, really important to have the habit of a community. So what are our boundaries as teachers, and make sure that all of us have it the same, because this is going to create safety for children. And we used to have those little trikes that you can get in the warehouse, so the little pink ones and the little black
Hmm.
ones. Now, my boundary, and everyone agreed to it, was that these don't come into the inside room because we've got babies on the floor. We do not want a toddler zooming around with a baby that can't move out of the way. But where it's funny and where you have to have a poker face with toddlers is they are so imaginative. It's more, so I've put the limit in and they will test it from every direction. And so I've had, so, I can't come in riding the bike. How about if two of us are riding the bike? Nope, still can't come if two of you are riding the bike. How about if I've got my legs up and someone's pushing me? Nope, still can't come in with that. How about I come in riding backwards? Nope, still can't come in riding backwards. How about, and I had two toddlers that literally lifted it above their heads. I'm like, still not coming in with you lifting it above your heads.
Yeah.
But I had to have a poker face. Inside, I'm literally in hysterics because I'm like going,
Yeah.
these are less than 2 years old. And oh my goodness, the imagination of testing this boundary. But I'm like, the minute that I crack a smile, I'm like, suddenly that boundary sort of gone because it's like
Yeah, it's so tricky,
they're,
eh?
li- they're literally being game on, cool. Let's make Donna crack up again. But inside, I'm laughing so much. But I also know that that boundary is there to create safety for all of the children. But that doesn't mean that you can't have fun with the boundary. And I think that's when I learned about respectful caregiving, so through Pikler. And so again, I used to not think that young children had this oh, understanding about them. So again, when I have my own children, I feel quite sad because I didn't see this deep level of how children think. It was only when I became a teacher, when I learned this way of being, that I learned just how incredible not only toddlers but babies are, and what
Mm.
and when you slow down, what they're able to show you. So and how much fun you have, because people talk about the terrible twos. It's not. It's literally, I love it because I'm like, game on. It's literally adults to children. How are we going to do this? Because and it's fun. It's fun, but you have to have a poker face. Or I had to have a poker face because I would literally be on the floor laughing at just how ingenious they were. Because the children I worked with, oh my goodness, so ingenious, so creative, so full of wonder, and they just loved to keep pushing. And it was more, and I had to learn to keep holding and to stay regulated, so I didn't then snap or do something that would then literally say, "Yeah, keep doing that." So that was my little story, but it was really interesting just watching that didn't pop into my head until I started laughing, and it was actually when I started laughing that these stories all started popping into my head.
That's the difference between, faking it and waiting for that genuine.
So amazing question. And I love how these questions are going each week.
Yes, because whatever the question is, then something will arise, even if it's not obvious at first. So therein lies the magic. Mm. So is it time to wrap up?
We have 15 seconds left.
Mm,
So I'd say it's definitely wrap up time.
perfect. So thank you so much, and I look forward to your question next time, Donna.
I'm looking forward to what this question's going to be and what
Yeah,
magic's going to come from it.
yeah. Amazing. Sending love.
See you. Bye.